So welcome to the March Insights. Our guest speaker today is Barbara Kerr. So everyone give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Somebody asked me on the elevator that she said, I'm sorry I'm not going to be there because I'm sure you're going to talk about how you were able to retire so early. And I said, no, that's not what I'm going to talk about, but I'm sorry you can't come anyway. So if any of you are here to hear about how I was able to retire early, I'm sorry, but that's not this speech. But I do plan to share some things that I've learned along the way, and I hope that they may be helpful to you in your particular situation. It'll be a mix of serious and humor. If you know me at all, you know that humor is always involved. Like, do you know why they're replacing lab rats with lawyers? Have you heard this one? It's pretty good. There's plenty of them. They need something to do. And there's some things you just can't get a rat to do. So, with that, let me pass out these sheets. Let's see if you'll pass them from that direction, and you'll pass them from that direction. These are some random thoughts that I want to share with you, and I'll kind of be going in a non-logical order, but once you get them, I'll show you where we're going to start. How you doing, Barry, at keeping up with me?
Phil.
Oh, Phil, I'm sorry.
I'm good.
Barry's the other half. He said most people sit right here, and I'm just not a sitter. I'm a stander. Okay, everybody have a sheet? Yeah. If we start right up here at the upper left-hand corner where it says fast, good, and cheap. Have you ever heard this concept? No. You can have two of the three. You can have something that's fast and good. You can have something that's good and cheap. Or you can have something that's cheap and fast. And you can really put this to use in any situation. The one that comes to my mind is dining services. We've been talking a lot about dining services, and it's a great example. We're inbred with the need to have all three of these things. We want everything fast, good, and cheap. It's really a hard standard to achieve. And so in the dining situation, we want it fast. You know, we want our waiters to come and take our orders, and then we want our food fast. We want the best food possible. That's the good food. And we wanted it cheap. It turns out we were driving dining services into a hole because we weren't paying enough for the food that we were getting. So now we're complaining a little bit because it hasn't affected the good, but it has affected the fast a little bit. So does anybody have a situation that you're thinking about where the fast, good, cheap makes sense?
When you order something online or
Exactly.
shopping in general.
Exactly. Or even an airline ticket. You know, if you buy it at the last minute, then you don't get it at a good rate. It's fast and it's good, it gets you there, but it's expensive. The other thing about fast, good, cheap is I think the only model that I've seen where it's almost been achieved is Amazon. Jeff Bezos kind of broke my model that you go on Amazon when you get frustrated with anything, or maybe you go there first, but I'll see something that I want to order, and have it delivered online to a store. And he broke the model by being fast, good, and cheap in my mind. So I guess that's why he's a billionaire and looking for the next thing to do. Now, let's go over. I'm sorry you missed the first part, Tina. That's okay. I will give you a remedial course on that because it'll be good for you. I think you will probably, there are extras at either end. I think you can, of all people, I think you can put this concept together in your work. Number two, let's go straight over from that to this quote. If you don't have time to do the thing right the first time, when are you ever going to have time to do it right? That kind of sinks in. You know, whatever you're doing, if Cora's cleaning my room and I get back too early and, you know, I'm anxious to get in and she says, well, I need to do the floor and I need for it to dry before you and your dog get back on there. You know, if you don't have the time to do the thing right the first time, when are you ever going to have time to do it right? And that just makes sense. You know, spend a little more time on the front end and then you don't have to worry about it again. Dick, it's not carrot soup, but oh, you have a place. I'll give you and Tina a remedial on what you've missed. Then right down from that on language matters. Maybe this was being the daughter of an English major, but language really does matter, and I think it matters in everything that we do. Kalina, you can probably be the judge of that. For 3 months while our elevators were out, it said, out of order, sorry for the inconvenience. Well, to me, sorry means somebody brushed you in a line and you're sorry, you know, sorry I hit you, or they stub your toe and sorry. Well, that was a pretty big thing, having the elevators out. To me, the better word is apologize. We take when you apologize for something, you're taking responsibility for it. So I think at some point it would, and you know, this is very particular to the individual, but seeing those signs get old and torn and kind of wispy, I thought, you know, now that they know how long a process it's going to be, they've done a great job of informing us, but wouldn't it be nice if they said, we apologize for the inconvenience? Just a little word. Sometimes when I'm checking out at a store, or even sometimes some of the servers in the dining room will, you know, you'll say, may I have some ketchup or some crackers or something? They'll say, no problem. And that's just kind of, it seems to me it infers that it's a careless way to say, no problem to do my job. And so if they would say something like, it's my pleasure, or sure, I can do that, it puts the emphasis back on, you know, I would love to go above and beyond, you know, instead of just, no problem, it's my pleasure. And then one of the neat things I've heard the new generation doing is the term of course. And it comes about when you ask somebody to do something and they'll say, of course. And I haven't heard that before. I mean, I know what the words mean, but I don't know if anybody else has heard it or if it has resonated with you, but I work with a few people of some of your age, and they say, of course, and they say it in such a nice way that I just feel really special that, of course, I can do that for you. So you know, new words are not bad, but they need to have some meaning to the giver and to the hearer. And I'm a big advocate of, and I apologize, I have braces and they cause me to kind of speak strangely. But one of the things that people say sometimes is, well, that's not what I meant. And it really, the words that you say, once they're out of your mouth, you've said them. And the person hears them their own way. And so to say, well, that's not what I meant, is a good start. But think about them 2 or 3 times before you say them, because they go out and you don't know that you've created some sort of communication bugaboo. All right, let's lighten things up. Go over to the 6 phases of a project over here on the left-hand side. I've always thought this was interesting. Hardly any of these are original to me, but I've gotten them through the years with different jobs I've had. You start a project with enthusiasm, that moves to disillusionment, then panic. You realize that you've really got to do this thing. Then a search for the guilty, followed by punishment of the innocent, and it ends with praise and honors for the non-participants. This may sound true. I don't know if this happens here. I think in some situations we can all relate to that. Then moving back over to the 3 things here. If you have a frog to swallow, don't look at it too long. Anybody know what I mean? For me, it was a telephone call that I didn't want to make. It was a client that I really didn't relate to, or maybe I was late on getting a portfolio review back to him, and I knew it was going to be a difficult call. And I literally visualized a little frog on my phone. And every time I looked at it, it got larger and larger and bigger. And I said, oh, that thing, if I just swallowed it at the beginning and made the call, it wouldn't have been so bad. So now I've wasted this time, and the frog's huge, and I've still got to make the call. So you can probably find examples of that. The second thing under these quotes is you should never experience a crisis for the second time. And that's sort of self-explanatory. We all have crises that occur, and we hope to learn from them. So if we can, we should do our best not to have sequential crises. Then below that, you can't teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and it irritates the pig. There are some people or there are some concepts that you're just not going to get that message across to. And you've either got to find another way, or you've got to realize that your communication skills and their listening skills are not one and the same. So I grew up near a farm, and I come from a farm heritage. I've been around pigs. They don't sing. So don't try it. It really does waste your time, and the pig really gets irritated. Okay, now to horse sense. Again, this you'll be able to relate to a lot of these. If the horse you are riding dies, get off. Don't consider buying a stronger whip, trying a new bit or bridle, switching riders, moving the horse to a new location, riding the horse for longer periods of time, saying things like, "This is the way we've always ridden this horse," appointing a committee to study the horse, arranging to visit other sites where they ride dead horses more efficiently, increasing the standards for riding dead horses, creating a test for measuring our riding ability, comparing how we're riding now with how we did 10 or 20 years ago, complaining about the state of horses these days, coming up with new styles of riding, blaming the horse's parents, or tightening the cinch. Just not going to work. I'm going to leave you with a challenge. That's right down here at the bottom. Write a creed to live by, or at least to aspire to. Mine is live simply, work diligently, give generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and laugh freely. Any questions or comments or things that you might want to add at this point? I know our time is limited. Yes, Tina.
Yeah, your creed, I think that's really interesting. At what age did you first start doing that, and has it changed over the years?
It does, and that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. I started in college writing. I started with a legal sheet, and I still have it, legal pad, of things that interested me. And some of these sayings have come during my work life, but it came from the same concept of things that I knew I would forget if I didn't have a place to write them down. So I think the creed has come to me from spiritual workshops that I've been to, or reading spiritual authors that I enjoy. And I think it just makes sense to have a creed. Probably Dick Sparrow has a creed.
Not as compact as yours.
Well, I'm an Episcopalian, so it's hard to get one that compact. Yeah.
What did you do in your work life?
I wrote down the things that I've done, and I consider myself a financial advisor, because I did that was my last career before coming here. I did it for about 15 years, and I think it was what I was meant to do. But I challenged myself to do the things, to write down everything I had done. I've done 10 different things in my career. But my career's kind of like my favorite thing at an amusement park is those bumper cars. I don't even know if they still have them. But I think of my career as riding in those bumper cars and hitting somebody and then trying to figure out which way to go. And somehow I have the capacity to land on my feet. So if I think I'm going to do this in my career and everything's going well, and then boom, something happens, and I go off to another direction and either get training for it or go back to school or whatever I have to do, then that works out well. And sometimes in my career, I'd worked for a reference laboratory. That's the kind of testing they do in a clinical laboratory that they have to send outside of hospitals. So you refer it to a specialty laboratory. So I did that for about 15 years. And I had done everything within there that I could without becoming the national sales rep, and I didn't want to travel all over the country. So I consider myself a financial advisor, but it took me a while to get there.
Was that your favorite job once you did?
It is. it is because of the relationship with people and working on, my specialty was estate planning and working intergenerationally so that there weren't surprises when someone passed away. And it's so funny because people do the same things that they learned. In other words, somebody said, you know, my husband died and now I'm in charge of the finances and I never knew anything about them. And I think it was easy for them to come to a woman, and so I did very well with women clients. And I said, have you discussed this with your daughters? And she said, no, I wouldn't want them to know anything. I wouldn't want them to know anything yet. They'll find out after I die. And it's like, you're just recreating what you said was so difficult for you, but people they fall into that pattern or that trap.
Barbara,
Yes.
you mentioned that you grew up with the farmland and around farms. Can you share a little bit about where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up, I'm a proud East Tennessean, and Tennessee's a long, skinny state, and so the east part is pulled off by the mountains, the Great Smokies, and the Appalachian to a little bit. So I grew up, my mother had a farm that has been in our family for 7 generations. And though I didn't live there, I lived about 20 minutes away from there, so spent a lot of time there, had a lot of good family gatherings there. And my brother still farms it. He was an English teacher in the public school systems, and he raised his children there. He redid the interior of the farmhouse, so from the outside it still looks the same. I still remember when my mother walked in it for the first time because, you know, inside it looked like a family house. You know, it was all of the strange little barriers were gone, and it was a very open, livable house. And she just couldn't get over the change in it. But his wife died within the last couple of years, and he's busy farming, and he has a son and a daughter, and they both live near, and now I have great nephews and a great niece, so he's very busy with grandchildren, and it's a happy situation.
That's great. How did you get from there to Florida?
Via Virginia. Once I graduated from college, I went to Maryville College in Maryville, Tennessee, and Sandy Taylor went to Maryville College as well. She shared that with me when she came up here.
I graduated 2 years after her brother. We find out.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look him up in the year.
Yeah. I know. My grandmother graduated from there in 1913, which was pretty unusual for a woman. And my parents graduated from there in the 40s, my brother in the 60s, I in the 70s. So we're pretty in with Maryville College. So after that, I moved to Atlanta and stayed there for 4 or 5 years, got my master's. And then I moved to Virginia and lived in Richmond for a while, and then took a different job where I could live anywhere I wanted to. So I had bought a summer home on the Chesapeake, which was about an hour east of Richmond, due east. If you look at Richmond and draw a line, it's where it drops off into the Chesapeake Bay. So I lived there for most of my professional life and enjoyed it. Lived on the Piankatank River, where I met Harry Hobson, who was working at Westminster Canterbury over in Irvington, and he was on the Coratoman River. And when I first talked to him, when I was going through the process here, I told Gordon that I knew Harry because I was on a couple of boards that met at Westminster Canterbury, and he would always come in and welcome us and do a little spiel. And I thought, Harry Hobson, that's an unusual name. It must be the same person that's here. So I looked up on the website, and it was Harry Hobson. So Gordon brought him in, and we compared notes about the different Indian name rivers that we knew down there. So from there, my parents had bought a condo on Lido in the late 70s. And I had enjoyed going down with them on vacations and things. And when they passed away, that was the one I chose. They had about 3 different things, and my sister and her husband wanted one, and I wanted this one, and we didn't really tell my brother about what was possible for him. But he now has this point system where you can travel anywhere, which we thought was more appropriate for the farmer, because he raises cattle and he's always breeding calves and things, so it's a full life. So that's how I found out about this place and about Sarasota in particular.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
What was your master's in, and what do you enjoy doing with your leisure time?
My master's was in public health. And I guess I used the analytical skill from that to migrate into becoming a financial advisor, because there's lots of common financial needs and analytics that you go through. And what I do for pleasure is swim and take part in most every aquatic program that's offered. I have a precious little dog named Olivia, a little miniature dachshund, and I enjoy spending time with her. I do some reading. I'm having a little vision problem these days, so reading is becoming a little bit of a challenge, but I'll figure out a way. I'll use that little bumper car and figure out a way to handle that. Yeah, Tina?
Is there anything you haven't accomplished that you still hope to?
Wow. Good question. You've been to some workshops, haven't you? I need to think about that. I retired when I was 57, and I didn't do that voluntarily. I had a health issue that no longer allowed me to serve clients the way I should. And so a counselor at that point said, "What did you want to do when you retired?" And I had never thought about retiring, because as a financial advisor, I could do that from down here. You don't really have to see the person face to face once you know them. So I had just considered gradually slowing down. I had 4 other partners, and so I didn't know what I wanted to do when I retired. And I'll have to give that some thought. That's a very good question. Because there are, I'm 64. There's lots of things I have yet to accomplish. I just don't know them at this point. Paul?
Is there an e-tech that you hold in high regard?
I hold an e-tech who plays the guitar in high regard. Hold on just a second. It has been a great pleasure to spend this time with you. I love living here, and it is because of the people in this room and all of your cohorts that I feel so loved and cared for and challenged. Your life's journey will differ from mine. I wish you well on your glide path and hope that some of what we discussed today will lighten your path. Thank you very much.